All right, I'm going to officially call this meeting to order. Thank you all for coming this evening. If you will rise with me, we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, board members, have you had a chance to take a look at this evening's agenda? There are no additions or changes at this time.
I move to adopt the agenda.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda for August 9th, 2022. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say no. Hearing none, the agenda has passed. And we will go straight to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Board President Davidson, other board directors, community, and staff. Well, we're already ramping up for the 22-23 school year. It is, again, as I mentioned, I think at the last board meeting, I think there's a lot of excitement in the air to come back right now with a lot less restrictions and a lot more fun planned for our students and our staff. In fact, next week, all of our certificated staff are invited to a multi-day, 3 to 4 days of professional development focused right on our strategic plan. So there'll be sessions on safe and welcoming environment, really around, building positive relationships, some things on classroom management, some things around, de-escalation or restorative justice, things that really do focus on ultimately the culture of what our students are experiencing. And those structures and routines are so critical, especially coming off of an environment the last couple of years where things were so uncertain. And so that just builds a lot of anxiety up for everyone. And so the way we can provide more predictability, and of course in a place that's safe and welcoming and really warm, we want to do that. So we're working out with our staff. And the other one's around ELA, so around reading and writing, and so we'll be doing a lot of that. That focus will be geared towards our elementary staff, and so a lot of excitement around that. So we'll look forward to having those awesome professional development sessions for our certificate staff next week. I would like to thank the Ridge. They were really helpful in supporting our 50 incoming 9th grade students work on their math skills. It was kind of a pre-algebra prep class. Obviously, again, there's been learning loss over the last couple of years, and really just helpful just strengthen their math skills as they come in. Having had many conversations with our math teachers over this last year, they just, we can't get enough of extra instruction and support for our students because, math is pretty linear. And if you miss some, then you can be out, and it's hard to teach yourself math. A little easier around the ELA. If you do read a lot, you can actually pick up quite a lot of skills. Speaking of our wonderful students and our staff, we have orientation at all 8 of our schools, so it's going to be awesome, multi-day orientation. Kids are coming in, again, warm and welcoming, less expectations. Here's our structured routines, some predictability, and just really get to know one another. So there's going to be a really great opportunity for our students to just get to know what's going on for their school, meet other students. We, of course, want to build as many friendships as we can. So that's wonderful. We'll be open and ready at all of our campuses. You can see just coming right here at Mountain View Elementary, you come in and you're like, wow, it's really organized. This place could operate tomorrow. And so that's not always the case for schools. There's usually a lot of things going on, but we've worked really hard. I want to thank our maintenance facility team. I know Robert's out there. Just, they're always really working tirelessly to just make sure our campuses look beautiful all the time, but it's also about what a lot of folks don't see behind the scenes is not only just regular maintenance, but we want to really get our environments really organized in a way that we can utilize as much space as possible, because storage is always at a premium. And so that's one of the things that we've been working on. And then hiring is going well. We don't have a ton of positions open. We got interviews going on right now for our certificate staff. Would say that we are having a little harder for some of our classified positions. That's not new. If you just drive around town, you can see help wanted signs everywhere. And so we're also in competition with everybody else. But we are working as hard as we can to fill those jobs. Right now, I do believe we'll have enough bus drivers. I know Director Tarswell, you're going to ask me that question. If you did, if you weren't, I'd be surprised. You should ask it. It's key. And so just wanted to let you know that right now we're looking good on the bus drivers. Nutrition staff, we're a little on the short side. So, it's just those kind of things I know are big deals because every person counts. Keep us going so that we can operate as smoothly as possible. And so I'll just simply end with just really a lot of, again, excitement and some people just really gearing up. I mean, the strategic plan, people want some gear. People want to rep it and they want to know more about it and they want to have a lot of fun and success for our students. It's almost palpable about how much just the students and the staff are ready to go and get learning going here in the Shelton School District. So your superintendent's really excited too. So there you go.
All right, thank you very much for your report. All right, we will go into community comments, and it looks like we do have one community comment tonight, so I'm going to read the standard language around that. And of course, if we have anyone call in, they will let us know if somebody's on cue for that. As part of the regular school board meeting, the board invites community members to make public comments in person and/or by phone as conditions allow. If speaking in person, please follow the public comment procedure by signing in and stating your name and address at the podium when called by the board chair. If making comments by phone, please dial 1-253-215-8782 and enter meeting ID number 854-3386-9913. Each person is allowed 3 minutes to speak. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the board is not allowed to discuss items that are not on the agenda. The board will direct the superintendent to follow up on any items that arise during public comment as appropriate. The board will not allow complaints against an individual staff member or student in open session unless that individual has requested an open public hearing. And so tonight we've got Ross Gallagher. I wondered. You were signing in for the meeting, but maybe not public comment? Or? Okay. All right. I did see the none there. I wasn't quite sure. So if there are no other comments from the public that's out there in the audience, is there anyone? There's nobody out there on the phone. All right. Then we will go down to reports and recognitions. So 5.01 is an overview of the proposed 2022-23 school district budget, and Brenda Trogstad will give us the budget report.
Good evening, President Davidson, Shelton School Board, and Superintendent Jesse. Thank you for giving me the opportunity of giving you the overview of our 2022-23 budget. We'll start, I have a little PowerPoint, it's not lengthy. You have some other items in your board packet that I gave you different details on than what we'll go over tonight, but I will reference those. The Shelton School District uses the state accounting manual for all the rules and laws of how we manage all of our funds. So you know that that is done accurately. The state auditor audits it annually and makes sure we're adhering to all the laws. And we had a clean audit this year, so I'm proud to say that. I'll start going through it, and you can ask questions at the end if you want. Okay, I got to do it at Scott, I think. Okay, it's not working, Scott. It worked earlier. Thank you. Okay, first of all, Shelton School District has 6 different funds that we keep our money in. You will see general fund is our largest one for revenue and expenditure that we do. That is our day-to-day operation. That pays all salaries, benefits, fuel for the buses, everything we do basically runs out of general fund. The Associated Student Body Fund is run by our secondary school students. They have student councils that manage the money along with supervision from their principals. They take votes on what their fundraisers are going to be every year, and they submit that to us as we're preparing our budget with their proposed budgets. So we actually input exactly what they send to us with their proposal. Debt Service Fund is where we collect for the bonds we did to build this amazing school and some of the other construction we did. So those are collected by the Mason County Treasurer monthly for us, and then we pay out twice a year out of that to pay on our bonds. And capital projects is where our bond money went into to pay for all of these things. We still are collecting a little bit in there from our non-highs on their contribution to Shelton High School. And we will continue to do that for the next couple of years. That money does have to be for improvements at Shelton High School because of it coming in from our non-high schools. And the Transportation Vehicle Fund, of course, we get depreciation every August 31st on the buses that are still on our depreciation schedule. We do have a couple buses on order, and I met with Don Hall, our new transportation director, today, and we're working on a plan to beef that up a little bit so we get more depreciation dollars. So we do have one more fund that you're kind of familiar with because your Drake Scholarship is in it. It's the Private Purpose Trust Fund. We are not required to do a budget for that fund, but you will see it on our financial statements at year end. So Scott, can you? So next you will have, this is a chart of our historical enrollment, and it goes back from 16-17 when we were about at 4,200 students, and as you can see, we took a big dive when COVID hit, and so we're hoping to get some of those students back in. We do budget on 4,125 FTE, which is a little less than where we landed this year. And this is an average for the whole year. The state averages it for the year, and that's where you end. And your funding is based on that. Our funding from the state does come in from our enrollment, so that's critical that we keep our enrollment either steady or try to increase it. When I did the projection for this 22-23 budget, I'm showing on the roll-up and what's coming in from our non-highs that we should hit at about 4,200 students. So that will be above where we're budgeting. That number of 4,125 does not include Running Start students or the Gravity Re-engagement program. Those are extra because that is money that comes in and goes out. We claim them on our enrollment, but we have to pay.
Can I ask a question then about that with the Running Start students? There's going to be new Running Start students that enroll each year. Mm-hmm. So how do you estimate how many?
I usually go back and look at historically where we've been for the last 5 years. It stays pretty steady for us. So.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where we are on that. I do have a different historical information in your packet that you had that kind of breaks it out by CTE and special education, that type of thing, so you can see how we've changed over the last couple of years on that.
And I guess therein lies a question that
Okay.
I had. I noticed when you said we did the run-up numbers, rolling everybody up, that we're going to be getting from one grade to the next, that will be about at 4,200. But on that historical thing, it talks about 4,019 as a FTE number. So there's
Right, so that is budget. So the 4,019 is without alternative learning at choice, and then you add the 106. So that comes to your 4,125 that we budget on.
Thank you.
Yeah, so those are budgeted numbers. The
I
prior
knew it
years, you'll see
wasn't all the
actual.
numbers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just those two. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. All right, the next one is our general fund balance history. As you probably are aware, you do have a board policy that has a goal of 9% in it. We've been pretty low the last few years, and so we will be trying to increase that. It will be going up a little bit with this next year. What the budget lands at 4.07%. We're projecting that with 21-22, when I do the financial statements, we're going to be at 3.4%. So this budget does increase it a little bit. So that's our intent as we keep budgeting and moving forward. Scott. So your next one is, this is how our revenue comes into Shelton School District. As you can see, the majority of it is state money that comes into the district. Your big piece of the pie there is our main apportionment dollars that come in, and that is based on your enrollment that comes in. So, and then we also have our local effort assistance that we get from the state, and that's when you pass a levy in your property poor district on your taxes, they generate dollars that help assist with that. Currently, we're receiving about $3 million for the local assistance. As you move around the pie, you have your state special purpose. In there, you have special education, your learning assistance program. We supply a teacher at the detention center, that comes into there. Transitional bilingual or highly capable program, any of the outside of basic ed programs that are state funded fit into that. And these state grants also are in there. Our local taxes are our levy dollars. And then we also get about $60,000 in timber excise tax that falls into that category. And then federal dollars are larger due to the ESSER money. We still have about $1 million in ESSER 2 that we budgeted in this next budget. And then we, because that ends at the end of August 2023. And then we split the remaining ESSER 3 dollars into 2 years because that ends in August of 2024. So we have about a little over $4 million in this budget for ESSER 3 money that we have planned for expenditures to assist with the strategic plan that you heard Superintendent Jesse talk about. So also in there, you have some federal special ed dollars. Our Indian education grant is in there. All of our title grants, Title I, Title II, Title III, all come in through there. There's a CTE Perkins grant that flows through there. So any federal grants will come in that category. Your other districts, we run several co-ops. We have a special ed co-op and our transportation co-op, and then we do provide meals to Southside schools, so that's considered a co-op too. Those come in through there. And then our feeder school districts pay us a portion of our levy dollars. There's a calculation that we submit a report to the ESD of which students are here from those districts, and they do a calculation, and it comes twice a year on our apportionment statement, and then we send invoices out to those districts to collect those dollars. And then other is any local dollars, our investments on what we put in, any fees or fines that happen, donations from people, like when CR Pacific donates, that goes into that category. So, any questions on that one? Yeah, Scott? So the accounting manual breaks down our expenditures in numerous ways. So this is one method that it gets broken down. And our expenditures in this budget were definitely done based on the strategic plan. We have met numerous times, and we're doing monthly meetings now. The superintendent will be on there, Mary Ann Marshall. One of my assistants, Deanna Reby, we're meeting monthly to look at all the funds, all the grants, everything, to make sure we're utilizing everything in the best efficient manner that we can. So we went through and looked at the strategic plan and plugged those dollars in appropriate places to make sure we had professional development, because we're trying to keep highly qualified staff. And so we have professional development in there. College and career readiness, we've made sure we have dollars in there. So as you'll see, most of our budget is spent on salaries and staffing and benefits. So the current, next year's budget, not the current one, is 82.99% salaries and benefits. Currently, we're at 83.1%, so we went down a little bit. This does reflect a 5.5%, what the state calls IPD. It's a COLA for cost of living increase in there. And they funded it on their side for most of our staff. They don't cover everybody, but we pass it through to everyone on our side, so that is reflected in there. Your supplies and materials are your day-to-day, the paper for the copy machines, the fuel for the buses, the food for the food service. It's that type of thing to keep the schools running every day. Purchase services are any contracts we have. If we have professional development and we bring in a speaker, that falls into there. All of our copier contracts fall into that. Anything that is contracted, if maintenance needs to hire a contractor for something, it falls into that category. And that is up a little bit this year for different things that we're doing in strategic planning also. That next little slice actually is 2 slices of a pie. You just can't see it because they're so small. So the capital outlay is only 0.25% of our budget. In the state accounting manual, that is a minimum purchase of $5,000 for one item, and it has to last for more than a year. So even our computers don't qualify for that. So, a big server, a network server will qualify for that. A big oven for that kitchen would qualify, but we have very minimal that falls into that category. And then travel, basically most of that is just mileage for people or meals if we send them out to some training, or we do have some custodians that go between 2 buildings. We have to pay them mileage for that type of thing. So that's our expenditures by object. Scott. And this breaks it out by activity. It's another portion of the state account codes that we use. As you can see, our biggest piece is the instruction to the students that fits in there. That's almost $59 million of our budget. Then you start coming around with instructional support. Those are the people that support in the classroom, like your counselors and stuff, they'll fall into there. School food services, of course, is all the meals and everything we serve this year. We are on what's called CEP because our free and reduced rate is so high, so nobody will be paying for a meal this year at all. So that's a good thing for our kids. So pupil transportation, that's all of our bus drivers, that's the fuel, that's the insurance on the buses. And then we do bill out of that for the co-op costs, anything that comes into there. Maintenance and operations, of course, is keeping the grounds clean, any maintenance we have to do on buildings, repairs of roofs, everything falls into that that's related to maintenance and operations. We have utilities, insurance, and security at almost $1.8 million. I did get the quote for our insurance. It did not go up, so I was thrilled to see that because last year it had gone up because of our new facilities. So we're staying pretty steady there. And then the information systems, that is a category in the accounting manual that part of our technology staff gets charged to. It's for the district-wide networking that they do. So our building techs don't get charged there, but we have networks, God is one, that partially gets charged there because that's how they code them in the manual. If it's district-wide services, it gets coded to that. Okay. Public activities, there's a little pink slice there you can barely see. That has gone down this year due to our partnership with the YMCA on the pool. Before that, we had quite a few pool costs in there, which we won't have as much because they're going to hire the staff for the services they'll be doing in there. And so that actually is our high school auditorium, the staff in there that work in there. And administration, it's gone up, Matt. So we have added some staffing to district office to help with the strategic plan. You have director of student wellness. You've got, a curriculum director for K-6 hired right now. There's staffing coming in there that is going to be assist clear district-wide. So that will help with the strategic plan and make that successful too, and give the supports out there to our staff that they need. So that is my presentation. Do you have any questions?
I
have one more thing. Can I say? Sorry, Marty. The big document, the real one, is posted on the website now. Jeff Slakey posted it for me. It's under proposed 22-23 budget at this point in time. So if you really want to read it, it's out there on the website.
So the whole document is out there because I believe it's the next meeting that we need to open it up for public comment and then
Yes,
close
we'll have a
that
public
portion.
hearing.
Yes, okay, thank you for
Yeah.
letting us know
Yeah.
that that's out there on the website.
Yep.
And since I wasn't really fully participating last budget season,
Oh.
I do have a question. I'm looking at the capital projects debt servicing, and I noticed that our interest payments are 2.3 million for the total.
Yes.
Just for my education, what are our interest rates and how long is the term?
They fluctuate every year when we sell the bonds. I have the big schedule if you would like me to share that with you.
I'm a
But-
masochist, but not quite. Thank you.
Yeah, when we sell the bonds, it depends on, they sell them in pieces, different dollar amounts. So every year it's a different interest rate
Got
on
it.
them.
Okay.
So when I do the financial statements for the state auditor, I do have a chart within those that I separate them out.
So we sell bonds, or I show on a rotating basis every year, then,
Yeah, they come due at different times during that 30-year period.
got it, thank
Yeah,
you.
Can you give us a high and a low on?
not off the top of my
active
head, but I
No,
can,
That's fine.
I can share it with you when I do the financial statements, because it is part of that
Okay.
process, so.
Right.
I like that it's truly centered around our strategic plan. It shows that that's being used to direct everything that we're doing towards a common goal, so thank you.
Good, thanks.
I have a couple. So, just as like a for instance here, we beefed up the classroom libraries as part of our, our path toward improving reading scores. So that's going to be under that instruction in this pie, or is that going to be?
In that pie, it would be,
Okay.
yes, yes.
All righty. And so in addition to that, is there additional, I think we had, I'm trying to remember, what's the next phase beyond the classroom libraries? Do we have a plan to beef up maybe the school libraries or some other means of reading, or do we just work with this for a while and see?
So the plan itself, I like this because not everything shoots off when you do a 5-year strategic plan, shoots off at the same time. And some activities will be ongoing. The classroom libraries is actually an ongoing activity. We obviously have a more upfront cost, but then there's maintenance and support of, some books create more interest, like the new series that comes out, for example, and you spread that out. And then we also have, coming up this year is a planning year for secondary ELA. So there'll be some book sets. It's different than classroom libraries at the secondary level. So just really updating the books that would be selected, that would be read in classes as part of something like a book club or just required reading, or in some cases, selection is the best practice for some way of having either individual reading or, again, back to a book club kind of situation for their assignments. The things that do continue on that which is quite a lot of cost, is the ongoing professional development. That is part of the instruction. But material-wise, it's pretty low cost, to be honest with you, from then on. For this particular strategic plan, it's really has a lot, because we have things around safe and welcoming environment. And those are usually carried on to personnel, because we're looking at mental health therapists, as I've documented before, those supports that would be part of the plan. But the rest of it, it's not as much, because CTE is quite a lot of money, and we can struggle usually on most years to even spend most of that. And part of the plan is to actually spend things more efficiently. That's why we're having monthly plans, because just trying to generate more accountability and guiding things towards what the real activities are that we're vested in for multiple years.
Okay. And so this budget then, as we have it, provides what we need for the upcoming reading needs. You talked a little bit about mental health and the student wellness position. Is that, where does that one fit into the budget?
That is there's 3 additional staff FTE net than was previously in the budget prior to the start of COVID. Those 3 positions are the multicultural education coordinator, because we didn't have anybody overseeing EL services when we have 22% of our students qualify for EL services, and 0 kids in 3rd grade meeting ELA who qualify for EL services. So that's why we did that. And then we have the director of student wellness, and then we did a data manager.
Okay,
And the data manager, we have been
okay.
updating our data management systems, our assessment systems, and use of data to drive decisions. And those
So-
go underneath the category of administration on the top in that gray
Thank you.
category.
That's what I was asking.
Yep.
Good deal. And we have enough support in for our pathways. You mentioned CTE, but our other pathways as well, and electives, and
Yeah.
the support for AP classes or any kind of, advanced
Yeah, and
studies.
those are ongoing audit. That is part of the pathway work in academies. We just met with business leaders last week. We were talking about that with them, and really talking to industry so that we are reflective of the academies and making shifts on that, as well as the graduation requirements. It's kind of a dance, making sure kids, when they graduate, have all the requirements to graduate and can make some choices is what we want. And as part of that of college, not college, which career, can I go shift my, interest in a different career if I so choose not to do that? I think this thing there, Director Tarswell, is, really playing on the budget for, we've talked about kind of more career, they're not career counselors, they're kind of career guidance about field experience. That's kind of one of the areas we may invest more in that, but we think we can do that within the CTE budget. And a lot of those things would depend on also student enrollment about the shifts, not only for the coursework, but where we're at as far as some of those monies. The last part, I think, that you mentioned that I think would be key for everyone to know is that on there for the reserve, the district is supposed to have a 9% reserve, and we're at 3.4%. And those federal dollars that you heard Brenda talk about, they have to be spent by the end of next school year. So for the 23-24 school year, those monies all go away. And if we time, not knowing if there's going to be any kind of economic downturn or influx of monies, building up that reserve is the best move for the district to sustain any activities, maintenance alone.
Yeah, we saw
ongoing
Robert's
professional
report not
development
too long ago.
alone during those additional years. So that's why, I know we've had this conversation before, but I just want to make sure I'm reiterating the purpose behind that is to spend the monies you have to spend to also save for later years.
Right, and I appreciate, trying to grow the ending balance a little bit, because we are going to have expenses next year that we'll need to have those in reserve for. We did see Robert's maintenance schedule here for the next few years, and there's a lot of stuff there. Yeah. And IT always presents some things too. I assume info systems would also be like softwares that would need to.
It actually isn't. It's more the server side of the whole networking.
Or the hardware.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
And I did have a couple of things I wanted to clarify then. So the federal ESSER dollars that have to get spent, those are spent on specific things. It's not just anything. So
Yes.
those have to be within specific categories. Can you give us an example of what some of those might be?
Yes, so the ESSER 3 is strictly pretty much focused on learning loss. So anything that can provide for student achievement falls into the ESSER 3, and that's the big pot of money that will end at August 2024. So that's what we're focusing a lot of our balanced literacy and that type of thing into that. We used some of those funds for summer school this year and the math camp and that type of thing. On the ESSER 2 that's left, that was more related to COVID issues. So we have our portable classrooms that we're bringing in. We got that approval from OSPI that we needed more space to not be so crammed in and that type of thing. So that'll take up most of that $1 million that's sitting there left. We use that for the PPE, all of personal protection, anything that we had to do
The
related to COVID.
sanitizing and
Yeah.
the sinks and things like that.
Extra custodians, see, we brought in extra custodians to do extra cleaning.
Okay.
Hot spots, that was there, so.
Yes. And then a couple other things from me. I know that we've got a data manager, which is a new position, but does that position also cover the student assessment? Is that assessment coordinator? Because I know we used to have that. That was Bob. And so is that position doing that as well? Or I wasn't sure if I knew who was covering that.
So that's a great question. We posted that position and no one's zero qualified applicants for that position. So we will spread that work around central office within teaching and learning, like we did this past year.
Okay, so it won't necessarily be the job of the data manager. It
It-
will potentially be
it-
more than,
Potentially could be some of their responsibilities. There's a lot of overlap with that, with the data and assessment and entering the information. The data manager we hired is extremely skilled and experienced in all that. And then also the data reporting for OSPI, which is a large part of that, as part of the assessment requirements by the state and the federal government.
okay.
So they will do some of that work for sure, yes. They will not do it alone.
Okay. And then one more question, just because I see different posts about this and I just want to understand this process better and if it's part of the instructional support. But classroom supplies, I sometimes see, and I don't know if it's for special projects or something the individual teacher's trying to do, but they might throw something out, as part of something that's online, like, that people can donate to. And so I didn't know if that's an extra thing or if the process is that they ask for funds through the principal and things get allocated, because we certainly want our teachers and classrooms to have the supplies that they need, but I didn't know if that goes over and above what is.
So I can start, Wyatt, then you can jump in. I can give you a little historical. We do allocate building budgets for each building, and those are for classroom supplies. It's not a lot of money, so you will see some teachers that are doing special projects go out and ask for donations. We have cautioned them to go to the principal first. If we can pay for it, we want to pay for it before we hit our community for donations. I'll use an example that happened this last year. They wanted some special mice to go with their computers. We could have bought those, but I found them out on the donation website. So, we try to monitor that to make sure we're not hitting the community too much for donations, but a lot of them are special projects that they're having their classrooms do.
Okay, and so that's just more of a building communication
Yeah.
type thing
Yeah.
that they would need to know.
Some of those posts are older posts, and so they stay up there. That was a case this last spring. They forgot to pull it down. They didn't need to have it up there. But the supplies and the things that they're supplied every day, we have enough. And we fund them, and they just need to go to their building principal to get those supplies furnished. Like Brenda's saying, sometimes some obscure special project or they're doing and stuff like that, and they're just looking for something. Generally, we can fund that, but if they're looking something, sometimes the community does want to get involved, but nothing basic for sure.
Okay. One last question as I was marking these down, and then if anybody else has any final questions. Under the public activities, and since you mentioned that the YMCA would be doing things for the pool, is the pool reopening to the public at some point? Or is the funds that were generated before from like kids' birthday parties or, public open swims in the morning, things like that, are those then done through the YMCA and not then channeled the same way they used to be?
That will be happening. We do have an MOU with them that we've came to an agreement with. We're still working through a few construction glitches at this point, and we are working
Yes.
on it.
Okay.
But when we reopen it, we will, the Y will be hiring lifeguards for their portion of the day that they're doing, and we'll hire lifeguards for like our swimming classes that we do. So we've kind of split some stuff, but they will be handling the open swims and swim lessons and that type of thing. So that revenue will flow to them instead.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Thank you.
And so then they would do the birthday parties or something would go through the YMCA then?
I believe so. We're working, we have Chad Youngquist who, does the swimming classes at the high school. We've built a calendar with the Y, so we know what times and spaces are available for the Y and when we need it. So that will be the continued coordination. That calendar is a moving document as we keep moving forward with them, so.
And if you were finished, I had a follow-up question.
I'm done for,
I would assume all of the buildings use their money. None of the buildings have extra floating around?
Well, we do give them carryover. They can have 20% carryover of their building budget. So some of them to try to maximize that, which is fine. They might have something the following year that they do. So when we do year-end close, after we've closed the books, we go back through and run all those reports and calculate their carryover. Prior to that, we usually give a couple updates in the spring before we do year-end close, just to let them know where they're at on those, just to make sure they're knowing what they have to spend, so.
And you said that was a 20%
20%,
carryover?
mhm.
Okay.
Not all funds have a carryover, though, so.
No, that's just their building
Yeah,
allocation.
just making sure
Right.
Yes.
you weren't thinking all of the money is
Oh,
in
no.
those different pots. I was just making sure no one out there was like, oh, yeah, all things, no, 20% carryover.
No.
You have to spend some.
That'd be cutting into our 82.99% payroll.
Well, then they got to spend the money on some things have to be done that year, yes.
Going back to reading and improving reading scores, where are we with school librarians? Is that, are all positions filled? Are they, adequately staffed, supported, professional development needed there? What's with school librarians?
Yeah, so I love myself a school librarian. I talk to Candy a lot, who's over around right here at this school. She might even be upstairs right now. But so my understanding, prior to my arrival, is the history was as part of a budget saving process was to remove the certificated librarian. They generally are an ESA staff, so they're generally certificated for both OMS and OBJH. So they have a library tech who operates and supports both, one is at each school site to support that. We do have full-time librarians at our elementary and SHS. Choice and Cedar would not be appropriate for a full-time librarian, or for that matter, even a half-time librarian, given the number of students, a little around 100. So that can always be revisited. I mean, we've talked about it this last year as we move forward. It may be something that we talk about being strategic, and always thinking in the strategic plan of is that something we really need to support that? Or are we going to be fine to utilize other skill sets with the staff, the classroom staff, to do that work? So there's not a definitive strategic plan. There's nothing specific that says, oh yeah, next year they're going to get that. But it is a topic that has been discussed, and I would predict that it will be a topic that will come up again.
And all options are on the table right now.
Yeah, I don't think it's one that's closed. As I always like to say, and I'm sure the board all understands that, when you give to something here, then I got to look at something there. Nurses, for example, are another topic that comes up a lot. You mentioned counselors are another one that comes up. Those in particular, those three positions are usually the ones that are, when budgets go down, those positions usually get cut along with administration and front office staff. When budgets are more flush, those positions come back. So to me, the question I would always ask all of us, as we have that conversation is, what is our strategic plan on that? Because you could go for many of those positions within this. And what can we sustain? Because when we only provide staff in certain areas for only a couple of years, and then they get cut later on, that lack of continuity leads to less relationships with the students and families, and also doesn't sustain the work that we're trying to accomplish. That's just always a worry.
And just now that we're through COVID and whatnot, what is our nurse situation? We have one.
We added another nurse because we needed to cover the health needs of our students. We have a number of students who have life-threatening health conditions. Safety is paramount, so we had to add another one to fully cover all of our students across the campuses. I mean, when you have, type 2 diabetes is real, folks. I mean, you got to monitor that nonstop. And so I was uneasy when I got here, knowing the number of nurses we have. We definitely needed to add another one. Staff were very concerned about some of our students and their health needs.
So we now have 2 full-time nurse?
No, we're up to 4. We have 4 across all our campuses.
Okay.
I mean, 4 for 8s, yeah. 4 for 8.
And one's an LPN. Yeah.
What?
We have 3 maid nurses and 1 LPN.
Yeah, LPN. One,
Yeah.
it is a nurse, but
Yeah,
it is an
I know.
LPN.
I was in my head going, oh, wait a minute. Yeah.
Shaming LPNs. geez.
Sorry. It's just the terms.
All righty, thank you.
Are there any other questions on the budget at this time? I asked your question. Well, we do appreciate getting the full budget report and that it is posted on the public
Yes.
website for any public to view that, and the next meeting will be open for any public comments on that. And, it is nice. This is why we did develop a strategic plan with community input and staff input to better assist with where we need to prioritize our funds. So I'm looking forward to the beginning of the school year and finding out how enrollment is this year. And of course, we've got to work with what we've got. So, yeah, thank you very
Thank you.
much for the budget report. All right, now we've got the consent agenda. And it's got several items there that are our typical items with our personnel report and different general fund warrants and associated student body fund warrants.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I would second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Hearing none, the consent agenda has passed. Now we've got one item under discussion and action items. It's 7.01, the proposed revised policy 1400. This is meeting conduct, order of business, and quorum. And we will go to Superintendent Jesse. This is our second reading, and it is recommended for approval.
Thanks, Board President Davidson. Again, coming to you for hopeful approval of the revision to policy 1400 regarding our meeting conduct, order of business, and quorum. This is particular policies being updated in relations to one, the update for the Open Public Meeting Act. So this year, new guidelines came out, as you know, both in relations to open meetings and making sure they're more public. Also, the notion around hybrid. So if there was an emergency or some other cutoff, or even just in regular meetings, just like today, because we are modeling that even when we do offer in person, we do want to offer also a option to go online, or you could even call in and listen to the meeting so that we have those things available. So that's one notion of that. And then there was just some cleanup, some things regarding also the RCW regarding civil conduct at board meetings, and just public comment and attendance. So that we made sure that we updated those parts too. So it was kind of getting out of date. Might as well get on the changes that are required, again, as part of the guidance by the state. So that's what we're moving there. I did receive some comments from the board, so made a few minor edits from the last board meeting. On the second page, down midway, underneath emergency meetings, second paragraph, I did alter in if, after not a declaration, but a proclamation of emergency by local and state government agencies, or a declaration by the federal government, the district can determine, that it cannot hold a board meeting then we would have to, obviously, reasonable assembly in a safe way, that we might have to have a remote meeting in the event of that, so that it wasn't just all borne on the board to make all those decisions, but just in the notion of something that wasn't truly a proclamation by the state agencies, which is obviously very likely, given whatever catastrophe that could come to us. I also, moving to the next page, right there on the top, the second paragraph, first full paragraph, simply, when the board cannot take an action in regarding the remote meeting, but we would actually, list out and provide an opportunity for folks to know and publicly listen to the proceedings and provide public comment, so that the board can't take action unless they do, even on a remote meeting, provide an option for public comment. And so, again, we would be set up for that anyway, because we could do something remotely unless there was something wrong with the electrical grid, but that's a whole other conversation. So I just have to put that out there. I know somebody's thinking it. I know some of our board directors have a lot of experience in this area. And so just wanted to put that out there, that the board does not, then again, make a action without providing an opportunity for public comment, even if it was to be remote. And then I believe that is all of the edits. And just, I'm sorry, I missed the first one. On the first page, underneath special meetings, again, if we're going to have a special meeting, we'll make a notification outside of the district offices. Also put out there in writing, anyway, with the media, but then also just an opportunity to post it on our website and social media accounts. So the district does have a Facebook account, for example, and so we would post the special meeting notice on social media. Those are the revisions added since the last board meeting, and again, I'd turn it back to you, just looking for approval for this revised board policy. Questions, if there are any?
I apologize, I was remiss in sending any comments to
Okay.
you. As I was going back through it and reading it again, I just want to make sure that we're adequately covered. We're adding "and social media accounts" under the title of special meetings. Should it also be under regular meetings?
Well, we don't have any changes, though, to the structure that's posted in the policy, and then it's on our website, always for the board meetings. So we don't advertise for those, but if there was a change, the reason that particular
That's the
section
only
was added
changes.
was because there's a change in how could you find ways to reach the public in
Okay.
additional efforts, is generally why that, so like, also posting it outside the board office,
Right.
right? Like,
Instead of the physical, just being the physical notice outside of the
correct,
district office.
correct, right. And so that case is an extended opportunity to do outreach.
Okay. And again, the same question under the emergency meetings. Obviously, if it's like you said, an electrical problem, you may not have the means to do that, but should we include something about "and social media" if available or applicable? Or, something that indicates that we've made, or at least given reasonable attempt for public involvement? If you look at this through the lens of just COVID, it makes sense the way that it is, but if I look at it through the lens of, some fire, flood, earthquake, or some other natural disaster, some of these things may not, we may be faced with a position of not having a meeting at all because we can't comply with this. Should there be some sort of a caveat for, a reasonable attempt for public involvement if it is one of these extreme natural disasters? Just throwing that thought out there.
I'm looking for your fellow directors to comment first. I didn't
Yeah,
want to
I
jump
don't
in
know if
here. It's not
Marty,
necessarily my
Matt, you
position.
guys both have emergency
Yeah, so
management experience.
when you look at the definition of an emergency meeting and when you would be able to have an emergency meeting and what you're actually able to do during an emergency meeting, being able to get it out there at all is going to be anything. You know, you can have an emergency meeting. If, for example, half of Mountain View School fell down right here, we could have an emergency meeting 15 minutes later. We don't have to advertise that. Now, we can't have any big votes. We can't do anything huge as far as policy goes. So as far as that goes, your need to actually announce that meeting kind of goes out anyways. So I don't know that saying we're going to put it on social media when if you the bottom of the thing is like, we may not be announcing these at all. This may be, we're going to get together, decide something in an emergency and go from there. A special meeting 24 hours later would be to finalize any of those decisions, actually vote on them, you know, start finding revenues and whatever we got to do, and those then would all have to be announced. But the actual definition of an emergency meeting, you may or may not announce it at all. You can try, but that's
Like
where
when
that
we
would be.
first came under the COVID restrictions as emergency meetings, we had limited things we could do at board meetings.
If it was an emergency, like we've got to meet right now to decide whether or not we open tomorrow, yeah, that would be covered. But then tomorrow, you need to announce a meeting that's going to follow that up sometime 24 hours later.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
So we could in the notes put, you know, there's always, you know, meeting notes that, you know, when it does say here, it says other means of remote access in regards to communication about the meeting. That's written in here that could be also social media. Tying us to some things I do worry a little bit about, as Director Wheelander is mentioning, only because all hands on deck in a remote, I mean, there's emergencies are emergencies, and scrambling is usually the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I read it on the bottom of, I think it's the second page, it says, the notice for meetings pursuant to and I was again proclaimed/declared, I didn't catch that one. Emergency must include instructions on how the public may listen to the proceedings and how the public may address any other electronic means of remote access offered by the district. I think that's broad enough that covers social media or any other electronic activities.
Okay. What page are we on?
Top of,
701, is it?
well, they're all sailing
Oh,
on.
sorry.
Uh,
Yeah, I'm looking at the bottom of my
Top of the
page.
third page.
Got it. Okay.
The way I read it and understand it, it's all inclusive because it says must include instructions. So whatever communications are available, we would be addressing it through those communication channels.
Okay.
And Marty, are you saying that that verbiage there of to a declared emergency should be a proclaimed?
Proclaim/declare. It's just a matter of process. Local governments proclaim, declare, and the federal government declares.
Do you see where that is?
It's just, yeah.
Okay.
And
That
just
would be a
to,
Scribner.
Yeah.
just to kind of tie that off, if you look at the second paragraph there, it says the board will not take final action on any matter during the remote meetings, things like that. So, you know, as long as we're not voting on anything, we'll be fine.
But as far as the content of communications, I believe is adequately covered.
Okay. I just was wanting to also make sure that the public felt that they were, you know, a reasonable attempt was made to accommodate the public. Just a couple of other things real quick. Public attendance and comment section talks about allowing public comment at the beginning of every regular meeting. So that means public comment is not at special meetings, and I believe that's how we do it currently.
That's how it's been currently.
Okay. I didn't know if that should be more plainly stated for clarity, or if we wanted to do that. Or emphasize that it's regular, not special. A lot of people don't realize that. And then I
Are you
assume-
referring, I'm sorry, I want to make sure I'm following you. Are you referring to the second paragraph, first sentence when you're saying that?
Second paragraph, second sentence.
Okay.
The third line down towards the end of the sentence. After the comma, the board will provide a period at the beginning of every regular meeting. And so we just thought, would it be wise just to put in there, public comment doesn't apply at a special meeting somewhere? Because that hasn't changed, right? That's always been something that people have been confused about.
You mean as far as like a study session type of thing, or?
Well, that one too, but, when we have, anytime we have a special meeting, that's not necessarily.
I'm just trying to think of what other type of special meetings, because if it's a community forum, then that's a different structure, and there
Right.
is public comment, there's a public conversation. But the other meetings would just be a study session or whatever, we term a board retreat, which is really just another study session type of meeting. Am I missing what another special meeting might be?
Offhand, I can't think of anything else, but, it's just the boards, what fellow directors would, if I'm the only one that sees that. We have lawyers in the family, and they always say it never hurts to state the obvious,
I think that it's centered around any final decisions or votes. So if we're not holding a bunch of votes and deciding things in special meetings, then, that would still fall under this, and we'd be okay. That's how I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct.
Okay.
So are you moving to make a revision of that? So we would have to get language out right now and just make sure that we nail what it is that you're proposing. What would be the specific language so that we can amend it as need?
Probably just a simple sentence somewhere under public attendance and comment that clearly says the board doesn't provide public comment period at special meetings. Or there is no requirement for.
Where there's no requirement for a
there is no
vote.
requirement for public comment at special meetings.
Yeah, I think if you go to the fourth line of that paragraph, it says the board will provide a period at the beginning of every regular scheduled meeting at which final action is to take place for public comment. And I think that goes back to the intent of the RCW is to make sure that we're not voting without public comment at that point.
And in a special meeting, we wouldn't be voting.
We wouldn't have a vote.
Yeah,
Those are more,
Taking action.
yeah, those are
right.
getting information and learning
Right.
meetings, not voting.
Okay.
I could, Dr. Tarswell, after that, the third, after the second sentence, you could create a third sentence during special meetings. There is no requirement for public comment. You could just,
That's plain and simple?
it's about as simple as I can get it. If you want to change that, or if you want to propose something, but that we would have to propose it to change it.
I think it's legally cleaner if we just leave it alone, because if we say that we're not going to have public comment during a special meeting, if for some reason there was ever a need to vote, now we've taken away the public comment on something that we would make a final action on. Typically, we're not going to, but the way it currently reads, keeps our ducks in a huddle, to me. I'm one guy. But that's how I read it.
Okay. All right.
Any thoughts?
I believe it's fine the way it is.
Okay.
You okay leaving it the way it is?
Yes.
All right. I think we won't add any additional language there, but we will create that correction, as we had before. Are there any other questions that you have or clarifications that you wanted to check on?
One more. towards the very end, last page, to promote the education of K through 12 with the Early Learning Center.
Yeah, we should do that.
Do we need to,
I can just write PK 12.
okay.
That's how that abbreviates.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
I could do
either.
that. That's a
Right
good.
there in the last
Just add a P
paragraph.
right before the K. That's how
Yes.
folks would recognize that. Okay, I'll make that change as
So,
well.
yeah, we've got some minor revisions then.
And
That's a
then I
good catch.
assume there'll be whatever minor edits might be required on the procedures, like adding social media into the procedure statement somewhere. Somebody would take care of those. Okay?
Yeah, me.
Yes. All right, so are there any other questions, clarifications, or do we have a motion at this time, since this was the second reading?
I got one last clarification, and then it goes to this last one that we just made, and to tie it into things like our inclusion statement and equity and all that. Can we change the PK to just all, so it's all students? To me, I like it better. I mean, again, I'm a guy.
I don't know, is that a terminology that needs to be pre-K?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't,
I just like the way it reads.
All is more encompassing of others, other than our scope of learning.
I don't know if that legally matters one way or the other, or?
It could be interpreted for more than that. That's a interesting conversation. I mean,
I'm pre-K to 12 is
Yeah.
fine. I was just looking at it in relationship to other documents.
I'd like it to say all of our students, but that, pre-K, all of our pre-K through 12 students, that could be one way to do it. Just because I'm interested in this policies for our students. That's what we're doing. Yeah.
Right.
But
Or just all of our students.
PK.
Then maybe we go with pre-K,
All right, pre-K to 12.
pre-K to 12.
Okay.
And keep it, yeah, all right. We could overthink all of these things and try to customize them specifically, but we do want to keep it as a working legal document. All right,
We're making a motion?
I make the motion that we adopt the board policy 1400 with the recommended changes.
I would second that.
it's been moved and seconded to approve the proposed revised policy 1400 with the editorial corrections that we've mentioned. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. Hearing none, the policy 1400 has passed. All right, we've got our second community comment period. At this time, if you have not signed up for community comments, we do have the sign-in sheet up here if anybody would like to make those, or if we have anyone calling in, we will be happy to take your call. No one is in queue? All right, nobody out there. Okay, we will go past the community comments and move on to board member comments. And I think I'll just start down at the end and work my way down. Sandy, do you have any comments this evening?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. Matt, do you have any comments?
I look forward to the results of the upcoming staff training surrounding tying into the strategic plan. I really like that we're fostering and really pushing the community partnerships, specifically the Ridge. I hope to see everybody at orientations at the different schools. That's huge. I'm excited. And it's really neat to have an excited superintendent that really wants to, foster morale as a, top-down leadership. I think that this is really important, and it's fun to watch him work. And so, good job.
All right, Director Best.
I just want to recognize the additional efforts being pushed out this year to get our students ready for next year. To help overcome the learning challenges of the last year, setting that foundation early with the additional algebra classes, with the extra, I mentioned the summer school last session. I think it's going to be critical for getting that head start to make the school year progress potentially better than we had last year. So I want to thank you for that additional effort this year.
That idea was the students.
Yeah.
So I know that was their idea.
Good.
And then I had just a couple of things I had mentioned earlier. I did send out the WASDA self-assessment. That is through WASDA. It's a survey that'll take about 15 to 20 minutes. You might get halfway through and feel like, when is this going to end? It's a good self-assessment tool for just, where we land as a board. And I did send that out. If we can complete that by next Friday, they can then give me the results of that survey. So that would be great. I did also want to mention too, we are as a board reviewing the board applications that have come in, and we will finish that review by the end of this week. And what we are aiming for is to have board interviews for that open position at the September 13th board meeting. And that will just be a part of the public meeting. And we should have a decision then that evening for that open seat, and that will be an appointment that would then have to then go through election when there's the next open election. So that is the time frame for that, and once we get that all nailed down, maybe we can add that information to the board section of the website as well too. And if any of you didn't know, Katie Diamond, who is our communication person who normally updates all of these things, she is out, I believe, on maternity, and so we do have Jeff Slakey, who is filling in for some of those communication spots. So yeah, our normal person is out at this time. And then I was going to say that I've got 2 kids going back to school. It's getting into that whole time to buy supplies, time to get ready, with school clothes. So I know people are busy with that. I've been at some of the local stores. I do see that supply lists are up, and that school supplies are out there in the schools. I'm looking forward to the different orientations. I've got a 9th grader next year, and there's the normal nerves with going into high school, and I've got an 8th grader, and I was seeing that their orientation was advertised on their board as well too. So those things will be coming up quickly. I'm excited about that. I'm glad that there were the efforts for summer school, and it sounds like people that participated in that really did feel like that was helpful. So I'm always grateful, especially after the few years that we've had. So we do have an exempt session tonight. We will be going into that, and we will be discussing the superintendent's contract, and we will come out of that into the public meeting for discussion and action on that. So at this point in time, we will leave this part of the meeting. Allison, do you want us to sign things first? So we'll probably take a few minutes, maybe 5 minutes, to be signing documentation that we need to sign, and then potentially 15 minutes in the exempt session, and then we will come back out into the public meeting. All right. All right, it is 7:40 when we're coming out of our exempt session. So now we can come out and have discussion and action on item 10.01, which is the superintendent's contract.
I have no further discussion.
All right. Is there a motion?
I would make a motion to, I guess, renew Superintendent Wyatt Jesse contract as written.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the superintendent's contract. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Hearing none, the superintendent's contract has passed. Now we are coming on to item number 11, which is adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
I don't even need that motion written out for me.
Yeah, you'll second that. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Hearing none. Hearing one. It is still passed. All right, thank you.
Thank you.